My name is Mike Ryback, and I've been elected top for the Williams family. And on behalf of Sue and the Williams family, I would like to welcome all of you to this day. And I'd like to just make a few comments about Tom, about some of the history and the things that we've done together with the family and that. And to be honest with you, some of the things probably I can't tell you, but I'd like to mention some of them. In 1965, I came to St. Cloud State transferred in for football from out east, and the very first guy I met was Tom Williams. And that was 56 years ago. I don't think I know anyone longer than that, except maybe my wife. But it was a true friendship. And it involved football. We played, Tom was a captain when I was a junior, and I was a captain when I was a senior, and he had a great love for football and was obviously a very, very, very good football player. And from there, Tom got me my first job here in St. Cloud, and we'll see how old some of you people are. It was at the Club Domino. Well, some of you are telling your age here. And we were the bouncers, and it was always great to have a guy Tom's size backing you up, let me tell you that. And believe it or not, I was probably the littlest guy that worked there. And we just had a great time. And from there, Tom took the job at Apollo as track coach, and I was a track coach at Foley. And although we were in different classes, we never competed against each other, but we'd always see each other at state meet and talk about how great we were as coaches. But it went on from there, and we finally got together and said, Don Brennan's here, and he said, well, let's go to Lynn Lake fishing. Now, I don't know how many of you guys know how far Lynn Lake is from here, but it was 22 hours in a pickup if you drive 60 miles an hour. And only the people that have made that trip, like Scott and Todd and them, can realize that's a haul.
It's a gravel road.
On a gravel road, most of it. But the fishing was just incredible. And it was just a wonderful, wonderful time. And I know that Horace, who we used to stay with there, and Tom are sitting up there saying, oh, that Ryback, he doesn't know how to fish walleyes. But I was the jack fisherman. I love fishing northerns. From there, we went hunting to Canada for 21 years, hunting geese in Canada together. So you can understand why I say friendship is important. And it wasn't friendship all the time, though. I have to say that. Well, it was friendship, but we didn't always quite see eye to eye. We did have, to say the least, different political views, but we're not going to go into there. But it's just difficult to find good friends like Tom. Even though he was known as the grumpy old man that time, he'd give his shirt off his back. And I'm just proud at this time to say that I had a good friend, Tom Williams. So again, thank you all. Thank you for being here on behalf of Tom. And at this time, I think Bob O'Neill is probably going to give you a little insight on his viewpoint.
Thanks, Mike. So I too was an old Husky, but my football career goes back a little bit further with Tommy than St. Cloud. We were both in the Wright County Conference. So Tom was, I think, 3 or 4 years older than I was, but the word was in Cokato, when you played Cokato, you only had 3 players to worry about: Larry Dodge, Jim Tack, and Tom Williams. And if you could handle those guys, you'd beat Cokato every time, whether it was in baseball or football or basketball. So I arrived here in St. Cloud in the fall of '66, and things evolved, and I think in '66, '67, I got recruited with Mike. I was the junior man at the Club Domino, so the 19-year-old was kicking out other 19-year-olds that couldn't behave. And somehow, I think Willie migrated over to tech in the lunchroom. That was the next stop for a lot of us football players. So we were the bouncers in the lunchroom at St. Cloud Tech too. What I'm really, really curious, I looked through all the photographs and I saw all these fish. I went fishing with Willie a lot. Red Lake, Lake Mille Lacs, Lake Osakis. Every time I went fishing with him, except for twice on Lake Osakis, the fish had lockjaw. Complete, total lockjaw. We went to, I was at Red Lake with Mike, I think, the last time, and I think we squeezed out one meal in 3 days. So he was one of the greatest outdoorsmen of all time, though. But we had a couple other, he looked like he was the Burt Reynolds of Cokato and St. Cloud for a long, long time. One of the most handsome, probably the handsomest guy on campus in the 60s. But a great friend, truly touched many, many lives at Apollo, St. Cloud State, both hockey, wrestling, and football. He's been a great, great friend. We got to do a Colorado adventure a few years ago, and we both got stressed out with COVID last year. Our wives both wanted to get rid of us for a few days. And so Todd took us in for a few days out there, and we had a blast with Todd and in Jackson Hole, and the trip out, the trip back. Prior to that, the last great trip was to Pagosa Springs, where Willie got shoot an elk. And lots of trips to South Dakota throughout the years. Most of all, I'd like to say that he was a great, great friend. And I just want to close with a poem that Bruce Cartford, one of our teammates from the 60s at St. Cloud State, sent, and just share this with you because I think it kind of sums up a lot of relationships that Tom had with people over the years. Tom Williams, captain of the 11, on a road trip, the highway to heaven. Best friend I ever had. Losing him makes me sad, but remembering our bonding does my heart good. He was a buddy that always stood, many friends of respect along the road. He was a leader that could carry the load, a beautiful wife and children. He did love. As a teacher and coach, he stood above. Hey, Willie, we'll miss you. And I think he'll miss all of us too. Thank you very much. Mike, who's next?
Mike, I think.
Thank you.
My name is Mike McMullen. Didn't play football with Tom, but Tom taught me how to play football. I was 15 years old and used to go to Apollo in the summertime. The gym would be open. The coaches would take turns being in the gym. And I'm a 15-year-old kid by myself, just playing basketball, lifting weights. In walks Willie and looks at me and says, "Hi, what's your name?" And then I told him who I was, and he said, "You play football?" I said, "At the time, I did not." He said, "Well, kid, you're going to play football." And so Tom took me under his wing, got me to play football, then got me to participate in track. He was a mentor, a coach, and a dad, to the point where we used to call him Dad. Behind his back, never to his face, until we graduated high school. Then, of course, we're on different terms. But anyways, as time went on, my wife and I had a son that was battling cancer. Tom would call me every couple days. "Mac, what do you need?" And literally would say, "You better reach out if you need something." That's the type of guy he was. I'm very fortunate to have him as a coach, as a friend, and a dad. Sue, thank you for sharing him with us.
Bobby? Bobby?
Yeah. Are there only Bobs and Mikes in this room today? I'm Bobby. Forget the Bob stuff. So, it's not Tom, it's Willie. He was always known as Willie to us. Prior to that, it was Mr. Williams walking down the hallway at Apollo High School. Stories are many, too many to discuss today, and they're not all G-rated, as Mr. Rybeck said. There were a couple that were interesting. I'll tell you at the ultimate later. Just find me, I'll tell you. So Willie was a husband, he was a father, he was a dad, he was a confidant, he was a mentor, he was a coach, and he was a true friend. And that second dad to many, Mac, right on. He would do just about anything that you needed within reason, help people out. He was a true mentor to many of us. Tom had a lot of knowledge, and he would share that knowledge even if you had your project done, the last nail was going in. Tom would say, "You missed something, you got to do it this way, this way, this way." So he was not shy, let's put it that way. Tom was always there for you, never shy. It was the Willie way. And so Tom would also join us, a couple of us guys, on Wednesday mornings, and we'd play golf. And Tom would look at us, and we'd kind of try to figure out, okay, we're going to hit a 7-iron, 9-iron, blah, 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 off the tee. And Willie would get up there, and he goes, "Boys, I didn't come to lay up." And so he always pulled his driver out, and he nailed the driver every time. And he was, again, a true friend to everyone. So now it's our turn to be true friends to the Williams family. Again, if there's anything that's needed, please let us know. Sympathy, condolences, and Tom's looking over us now. So he's watching out for everybody. Thank you.
I just wanted to thank everyone for showing up today. Clearly, you love him as much as he loves you, and that's why you're here. And we know he had a ton of friends in the community, not only in St. Cloud, northern Minnesota, southern Minnesota, Canada, across the U.S. for the most part. We had a lot of great adventures together, my father and I, and my brother. The last 20 years was probably more my father and I, because Scott was doing stuff for our country, and my sister had a family, and he had a family as well too. But I had some freedom, because I never got a haircut or had a real job, so I was able to spend some time with my father, and that was his greatest song that he felt he had to play for me every time I got in the truck, by George Thorogood. But these days, was able to get a haircut, but I don't have a real job yet, but it's fine. But I do want to thank everyone for showing up. I had a great time with my father. He taught me many ways to survive in many remote locations, and can't thank him enough for that. He made a good run. He had a lot of fun, and I think he's a very happy man where he is right now. So thank you all for showing up.
I appreciate everybody showing up casual for the most part, right? That's what we wanted. But this was maybe my little last act of defiance, because he didn't want a tie, he didn't want a sport coat, but to hell with it, so I'm wearing it. Okay. I'm going to share some stuff here, and some might be tough, but it'll be fair. A week ago, this video came up by Ernie Johnson. I don't know if everybody heard of Ernie Johnson. I had some friends that know him real well. He's a TBS announcer for basketball, and that's why I didn't know him, because I didn't pay attention to basketball. But Ernie Johnson, and if there's one thing I'd say is after this, I went and looked at the video this week, and it had 49,000 likes, and it should have 49 million. Because it's about being a better human. And in it, Ernie's at the University of Alabama. And this is not a promotion for Ernie, it's not a promotion for basketball, it's not a promotion for anything, but he has a couple things. Short story is he adopted a son, Michael, from Romania. Coach took him under his wing. He was in a wheelchair, he had muscular dystrophy. And this coach saw value in him, brought him on the basketball team, made him a member of the team. And with Ernie Johnson, he says two things. He said, this boy taught me maximum effort, and he taught me how to have a heart for others. And that heart for others is value in other people. And that maximum effort, what he shared was his boy to raise his hand in the air to give the I love you sign in sign language took maximum effort to do it. So maximum effort, heart for others. And as I kept thinking about it, we look at maximum effort and we say, what's the expectations from maximum effort? If you're not careful, your expectations for maximum effort could set a bar that says, my maximum effort is you're going to have a name of Brady, you're going to be a Jordan, you're going to be a Gretzky. But that's not everybody's bar. Michael's maximum effort was raising his hand in the air. Your maximum effort, heart for others, if you're trying to judge and evaluate, could be an expectation that you're a Mandela, a Gandhi, a Teresa, or a Lincoln. And that's not, shouldn't be our expectation. So what does maximum effort deliver? And what do we require, right? I mean, we talk about maximum effort, we talk about physical things. We talk about how fast we're going to run, how high we're going to jump, how far we're going to throw the ball, how many goals we're going to score. But do we talk about maximum effort for other stuff? What's the maximum effort, and how do I look at it for terms of work, parenting, being a husband, being a wife, our hobbies? But how do I talk about maximum effort from emotional support? Because I tell you, if you look at my dad, for maximum effort for physical things, there's oftentimes he was a behemoth. I mean, I remember a story of him trying to lift a train and he blew a hernia as a kid. I think it's true, but like a lot of these stories, the fish gets bigger. When he was a private in the Army, his company commander, a soldier walked in the Vietnam area and shot his company commander. My dad went in there. I think he broke his hand, didn't he? Subdued the gunman, broke his hand. He gave maximum effort. When he went to my son's, you're supposed to look at everybody's eyes and help me smile. Right. He went to his graduation. He had just had back surgery, rheumatoid arthritis. I want to cut his leg off if he didn't take care of a hematoma from falling off the dock the year prior. But it took maximum effort to go, but he was not going to be stopped to be there. When it came for Heart for Others, in that emotional effort, especially within the immediate family, was hard. And I'm not going to lie, right? It was hard. I would talk to my dad and I'd say, "Come down, Dad, and see the kids." He'd say, "But what am I going to do?" And I'd shake my head and say, "You don't get it." And I was disappointed. And I started to doubt his emotional connection with us. It took every ounce of effort for him to say to his kids, "I love you." Every ounce of effort. And if he did, he didn't look us in the eye, he looked away. But then I looked at like the oxymoron of his effort and his love for others, and I hear the stories of what he did, Mike, and how he went in with you, and I hear so much of the outpouring of heart for others and value in other people that he did. He was a teacher, but he wasn't a teacher. He was a teacher in special education. I mean, you cannot be a teacher in special education without a heart for others and seeing value in other people. You can't. And I didn't see it sometimes. Internally close to the family, and I think it's a lot of us, we see it's like it gets, I don't know, it's like you get too close to the love and you put up these defensive mechanisms because it's uncomfortable when I get close, right? But at the bar, you can be Norm at the end of the corner and you can drink up a beer and you can be love for everybody and you can do it, but the closer it gets harder and harder and harder, and then you push away. And I found myself judging. Dad, you're not doing it the right way. You're not saying this, you're doing that. You're being annoying. What you say, what you do, how you act, what you're there. It's annoying me, and I don't want to be. I can't take this. I'm going to walk away. And I was judging everything he did versus evaluating, versus being curious. There's a quote, and I'm not a poet, but Walt Whitman says, "Be curious, not judgmental." And I got that quote because I like Ted Lasso. If you haven't seen Ted Lasso, you should watch it. Just like you go to watch Ernie Johnson, you should go watch Ted Lasso. If you've ever been a coach, you should go watch Ted Lasso, and why everybody wants to be, if you're a coach or a teacher or a leader, wants to be Ted Lasso, right? And I go back to Ernie Johnson when he talked about this coach did something for my son. What I think the message is, not just coaches, but teachers, but people, but leaders, but workers, but anybody, but spouses, but husbands, wives, dads, fathers, whatever, buddy, right? Find maximum effort, have a heart for others. So when I was judging him, it brought me back to a time when I was in Boston, and we came toe-to-toe in my basement. I'll never forget it. It was hard. I think he was going to leave. He was just being pissanny around the table. He was saying stuff I didn't like. I didn't find necessarily comfortable, and it bothered me. And it bothered him. He could see it. And he went down the basement, he sat in the chair, And I went down there and I looked at him, and he stood up and he came after me like we were going to go toe to toe. And that's not somebody you want to go toe to toe. And I was scared for a second. But I looked him in the eye and I said, Dad, I have no idea what it was like for you to grow up as a young boy. I know that your dad was tough. I know it. And I said, I don't know exactly how hard it was or what you went through, but I understand it was freaking hard. He looked at me and his face got red, but not in an angry way, in a sad way. And he sat back down in the chair. And he just nodded. He didn't say anything. And I didn't ask. I failed, as Walt Whitman says, to be curious. To be curious and not judgmental. I didn't ask why, I didn't get in, but I know from the toughness of it he was never going to share it, but I knew there was something there, and I didn't know why, and I knew he wanted to try to be better. And I looked at him and I said, Dad, you're not the perfect dad, I got it. I said, neither am I. But I'm going to learn from you to be better. All right? And I want my kids to be better than I was, because I don't got it right. I don't. But I learned some things and I'm better. But as time went on, I'd have conversations, and I think many of you had conversations with him. And he was opinionated. And I would try and talk. I'd try and talk rationally, what I felt was rational. And I don't think he was listening sometimes. I didn't feel it. To the couple points where I hung up the phone. The political swamp of a mess that we have going on was just not a place that we needed to talk in our household or on the phone calls. And when it went down that path, I had to walk out the door. Because I didn't think he was listening to me, right? Because if I go back to Ernie Johnson, I talk about it, I'm not talking about if I like this or that. I was just simply talking about being a better human being, and that was it. Regardless of what you believe, you can be a better human being. So I gave up. When he would talk about these things, I would want to walk away and say, I've had it. There was times when he was at Culver and he'd flip on Fox News and I'd get out of the chair and say, I'm out. So we want to sit around here and drink a beer, we'll put on some country music, but I'm not listening to this because it will take us nowhere. And I was frustrated. And I didn't know if he was listening. So last Sunday, my daughter and I are at the Barnes & Noble. My wife's Barnes & Noble. I just talked to my son. And my phone starts ringing in my pocket. And I said, it wasn't ringing, it was like, you know, not somebody was calling me like I was calling somebody. It was like, who the hell am I calling? And I reached down, and for an instant I look at it, and it's my dad. And I'm in my head as I'm like, I don't need to deal with this right now. But I didn't slide it off in time. And I hear his voice. Hey, Scott, it's nice to hear you call me. I was like, I don't have the heart to tell him that it was about that. So I started listening. He says, how's Meta? How's Jack? How's Parker? He wasn't checking the block. He was sincere about it. Parker walks up, starts talking. My dad hears his voice. Is that Parker? And Parker, you gave him a gift that day. The gift was your voice to him. He was so happy to hear it and sit in his chair. I know right where he was sitting, getting ready to go to Budweiser Beach shortly thereafter. It was a gift to hear your voice. And then he started talking. He goes, hey, this, and that, our country's going to shit. And I'm just like, time out. And then he paused. But before I tell you what he paused, he said, our country. I had said, Dad, so over the years, I did 20 years in the Army. I've traveled lots of places. I've been all throughout the Middle East. I've been into Egypt, Cairo, Baghdad, Riyadh, Bahrain, Iraq, Afghanistan. I've been into Taiwan, Japan, Korea, Europe, 16 countries. I don't know. I've seen lots of cultures. I've seen lots of people. And I'm going to tell everybody this right now. They're good human beings. I've been into some countries where we would have conversations. I said, Dad, there were some of the most kind and gentle people I have ever met that welcomed me into their house. They're phenomenal people. So don't let a few bad actors be who they are. And I didn't think he was listening. But when I told him that country was going to shit, he paused for a second. And he said, yeah, but there's a bunch of other countries that are struggling too. And I was like, And then he hung up the phone. He didn't say, I love you, but neither did I. I looked at my wife and I said, wow, that was like the best phone call. He was sincere, he was engaging, he wasn't judging, he was talking, we were conversing, he was happy. And in that moment when he paused and he thought about something, I said, maybe after all these years he was listening to what, just my opinion and what I felt. Because I didn't think, because I'd given up on him. And then I had heard that in some acts of kindness, like he had sent my mom some flowers just because to thank her for all she had done and the shit he had been in that house over the years because of his pain. And you might not see it, but it would come back to the house and he didn't know how to do it, and that's how he'd express it. And as I look back and I think about what he would say, and I saw him the day when Jack was graduating, and I came up to the booth and he was crying, and he looked at me and he said, you must be so proud of your son. He didn't know to say, I was so proud of your son, because he couldn't share it, because he was like Michael in that emotional effort. He couldn't do it. And that was his maximum effort. So in that phone call, when I ended, I said he was listening to me, and then maybe I went back and I said, but how do I evaluate what his maximum effort is and how it was? And I go back and look at everything he's done and how hard he worked, and even though how bad I assessed it at some point in time, from an emotional connection, and I talk about how do you evaluate the emotional, because it's easy to evaluate it's physical feats, but emotional feats are tough. And I look back at it at times and I think it took every ounce of his body to look one of his immediate family members in the eye and give them a hug and say, I love you. But he tried, and he was listening, and he was acknowledging. So Dad, I love you, and you don't have to say anything, because I know. Thanks.
I'm not supposed to talk. I'm terrible at talking. And you did a fabulous job. I think the one thing we just maybe missed is how much he loved his grandkids. He may have really struggled with us, but the four of them know how much he loved them, and he made them so, so happy. He asked for my daughter to play hockey for 3 years, and in 3 years I said no. And then all of a sudden, some shoulder pads showed up. Great. Then all of a sudden, some breezers showed up in the house. She's 3.5. I said, she's not playing hockey, Dad. Just stop. And the helmet, elbow pads, shin pads. All of a sudden, she's got the full uniform, and I'm like, well, shit. I guess we got to play hockey now. He offered one time, he said, just let her play, I'll pay for it. Mom's in the background, no you won't. He was so proud of Parker. He was so proud of Jack. He was so proud of Bennett and Evelyn. And he told them he loved them. And I think that was his way of showing he loved us. He just couldn't do it. But he does it every day. And we're so, I mean, this is amazing. So thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for showing your love. Thank you for showing your support. I hope that continues for my mom when we're not around, and I know it will. But thanks for coming.
One other I forgot, Mike, but you're all invited to the ultimate. We'll start serving around from the family. We'd love to see everybody over there around 12:30. If you go there at 11 and start drinking Mr. P's, I'm sure Tom and Greg's will mind.
I would just like to say, along that line, in spending hours and hours and hours and hours with Tom, all of his children and his wife can feel assured that he truly loved them. Scott, he may not have told you, but I won't tell you how many times he told me. And that's all of our problems, unfortunately. On behalf of Tom, maybe it's the only time I can speak for him, I would like to thank you all for being here and how much it means to the family and how much it means to all of us. Thank you very much.
And I had to start again, just not sure. Thank my lucky stars, they live here for me. Thank you for
Oh, okay.
Unless you want to deliver